What is up, everybody? Marco and I just having a little bit of fun before we go live early. By the way, I bet you Brother Bob's not going to be here to let us know how late we are. We're 2 minutes early, just for the record. Man, this Brandon Aiyuk thing just keeps on going. When Matt Maiocco talks, I pay attention. And he has some things to say about this. We're also going to talk about, believe it or not, I know that Trey Lance isn't here and Jimmy Garoppolo's not here. But does quarterback 2 matter? We're going to talk a little Jordan Mason. We're going to talk about some of the new players, the new additions to the team, make some predictions on who's going to make an impact. We're going to talk about all those things, plus more, and we're going to do it next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Thursday, a little bit earlier than normal. So it's almost like early inception, earlier time than normal. And we started early on that early time. I feel like we're winning. Marco joins me as always. What's up, Marco? How you doing?
Bro, how's it going, man? It's definitely appreciate you for being able to go early. It's graduation season everywhere. So congratulations to all the graduates, high school graduate, middle school, college, master's degree, and all those big accomplishments for everyone out there. So if you've graduated, congratulations to you. You've done something big. Go get another degree. Go get something else. Don't make that be the only time you walk stage, man. Congratulations to everyone.
Yeah, congratulations. You know, I've got a friend that I grew up with. His name's Joe. Shout out to Joe. He had his second kid graduate high school this year. His second kid. He's an empty nester at 41 years old. Like, dang, bro. That is crazy. I remember when I found out he was having his first kid. We were so young, man. We were in college, like skipping college classes to play Madden. Like, that's what type of time we were on. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got a kid on the way. I got to get serious. So, but shout out to Joe. Shout out to everybody that's graduating. Congratulations. Enjoy your summer and then get back to the grind. It never stops. Speaking of grind, Marco, this Brandon Aiyuk situation seems to be a bit of a grind. Every episode for the last, month, I feel like I'm starting with a Brandon Aiyuk topic. And every time that I say that, I feel like it's probably the last time in a while. However, Matt Maiocco spoke today, and Matt Maiocco really has been coming out over the last week or so, kind of planting his flag in this situation and doubled down today, basically saying that it seems to him as if this situation is a little bit different than the others, different than the Debo situation, different than the Nick Bosa situation, and the fact that money might just simply be running out and they may make Brandon Aiyuk play on that fifth-year deal, which echoes a little bit of what John Lynch said during, I don't remember if it was the owner meetings or what was it, the rookie camps or whatever. I don't remember exactly. But either way, he did say, hey, we'd be willing to let him play on the fifth year. I don't know how Aiyuk would feel about that. That being said, what do you feel about Matt Maiocco and his thoughts? And then what are your thoughts? I mean, you and I think, have talked, and I've said, well, I think a deal gets done. You've kind of been on the same page, but this one gives me a little bit of pause, Marco. This one gives me a little bit of pause. What are your thoughts?
So from the perspective of Maiocco, I get it, right? Like, there is some things to be concerned about, but then I'm also confused because he says there's no more money to go around, but then he mentions because of Brock Purdy's contract, right, which is next year. Well, you could do Brandon Aiyuk's contract a certain way with, they have, I believe, $32 million in cap space right now. Jesse, they have 19 or 20 million in dead cap. So that plays a big factor. When people say dead cap money don't matter, or it doesn't matter if you have dead cap down the line, it does matter for situations like this. And this is something that Matt Maiocco kind of like mentioned, in the sense of, he talked about paying all these big name players and having that money to be there for a guy like Brock Purdy. So when I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, Matt Maiocco, I get what you're saying. Like, truthfully, my bad. truthfully, you're looking at the numbers and everything. The Niners could get it done. The way I see it from the perspective of Maiocco, I get where he's coming from, that you can't pay everybody, which was a quote that I got from him, is you cannot pay everybody. But I'm going to go another route. And no disrespect to Matt Maiocco. I really respect what he does with the 49ers as in the journalism avenue that he's with. But this definitely sounds like mouthpiece information for me, man. Like, the Niners could go through Maiocco a certain way and say, hey, you know what? We actually think Brandon Aiyuk is going to really sit tight on this one. He has not budged, unlike the other guys when we've negotiated with. They budged, right? The only other player who didn't budge was Nick Bosa. Everyone knew he wasn't going to budge, and he was going to get $35 million no matter what. Like, that was the go-to. Like, we knew Nick wasn't going to budge. Niners are in their perspective, like, you know what? BA's not budging. Hey, Maiocco, you know what? Put an article out there. We know Brandon and his team and his family is reading this. They're going to send it to him. We don't have the money for him, and we don't care if this is his final year. We're willing to let it play out and then kick the can down the road. If we have to franchise tag him, if we have to do something down the road, that's kind of how I got from it. Like, it wasn't like him saying, you know what, I guarantee he's not going to be on this roster. It wasn't a report. It was more so hey, this may happen. Like, of course, anything's possible. Anything can happen, right? Like, I'm not saying it can't. But the way I felt it was Maiocco coming off as the 49ers saying this is happening. Don't get comfortable over there, Brandon, because we're willing to be really hardball with you. We're willing to go into that fifth-year option. The Niners aren't really willing to do that, because if the case comes down to it, Brandon Aiyuk's willing to hold out until he has to get an accrued season. So, okay, you pay me your accrued season. Which one of your receivers can beat man-to-man the first couple of weeks in really big, crucial games? I hope you enjoy that. So the reality is there's a lot of things that's going on with Brandon Aiyuk and the front office. And to me, Maiocco in this situation is more so a voice for the 49ers.
I like that. I hadn't thought about that, but I can agree with it, because Maiocco, one way or another, you got to listen when he speaks, because you're right. Either he's telling you what the team thinks, or he's giving you some inside information that maybe shouldn't necessarily always be out there, but he's kind of cryptic about it. You know what I mean? So I can see that. I can definitely see that, but I think there's something to it. All right, let me ask you this. Who do you think is more at risk then? Because I think there is risk on both sides. Let's say both sides are going to play hardball all the way through. Aiyuk is going to miss time no matter what. He's not going to be there for a few weeks minimum to start the season. Who is running the risk more, the 49ers or Brandon Aiyuk in that situation, and why?
I think both. This is a hard.
I mean, I do too.
It's a hard situation.
Damn it! No, I'm kidding.
If I had to choose a side, I'll choose a side, because I ain't no person that's not gonna do that, right? I'm not gonna sit here and be one of those. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So, I think the Niners are risking more, and the reason is, right. So let's say Ricky Pearsall, Debo, the first. Let's say you said 4 weeks, or how many weeks was it?
Let's say it's 6 weeks. We'll just throw a random number out there. 6 weeks.
Let's say Debo Samuel gets injured at some point within those 6 weeks. Ricky Pearsall isn't beating man-to-man coverage. Who's lining up on the line of scrimmage as that receiver that Brandon Aiyuk normally is, beating press man down every down? If Pearsall starts to struggle, Jennings isn't that guy with the speed to do that. We know Debo can't do it. Who do you rely on to do it, right? One of those guys go down. Hey, you know what Brandon Aiyuk's saying? Yesterday's price isn't today's price, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, hey, all right, someone goes down. I'm not saying someone will, but if that happens, now his price tag goes up if they're struggling to pass the ball because teams are getting in press man and they're just jamming their receivers and they're struggling, and Brock is struggling a bit, right? Then the Niners have to pay and they have to cash up. Now, Brandon Aiyuk, he does kind of put himself out there because he's going to have the lack of film, the lack of numbers. But teams know who Brandon Aiyuk is. They have 2 years worth of film on how great of a receiver he is. So I think a team would still be willing to trade for him and still be willing to pay him if he only played half the season and put up 800 yards because they know what they can get from him. For example, if a team like the Jaguars, Pittsburgh Steelers, they need a receiver next year, which they still most likely will, they're willing to pay that kind of guy. So I think the Niners have more to risk than Brandon Aiyuk at this point.
Yeah, I think they both have a lot to risk. I'll go the other side. I'll make the argument for the other side. What if, because the 49ers can manufacture touches. This is the regular season, not the postseason, right? The 49ers can manufacture touches for guys like Pearsall and Cowing and Debo. Obviously, you get CMC in there. He's the dump off guy. And then, maybe you put Kittle out on routes, what have you. I also look at that schedule and I feel like they could start 6 games. They could start 5-1 potentially. Now Jets are not going to be easy. KC, I believe they play in that stretch in Seattle. So there's some tough games, but I could also see a scenario where they start 5-1. And if they do, I think that hurts the leverage on Brandon Aiyuk more so than it does the 49ers. And also, I'll say this, we don't know what Ricky Pearsall is, but what if Ricky Pearsall is good right out the gate? Because one thing we both agree on is, I think we both agree that Ricky Pearsall may not ever be that true number one, but we also agree that he's possibly the most polished receiver out of all of the rookies. And the biggest gripe of taking Ricky Pearsall was that he's probably not going to play early on, even though he is polished. But if he does get to play early on and he is polished and he can make some things shake, now all of a sudden things get very interesting for Brandon Aiyuk. So I agree with you. I think they both run a risk and this could really go either way. But I just wanted to make the case for Brandon Aiyuk. Let me ask you one last thing, because Stats and I did a show yesterday, I believe. And he was pretty confident that if BA is not on this team, he still thinks the 49ers can win a Super Bowl this year. How confident are you? That's the exact face I made. That's the face I made.
Because the team that you're playing is they're going to be sending pressure. They're going to be playing press man against you. So even in the first 3 weeks, right, you'd risk, if you fall 2 of those divisional games with there's 2 to the Rams, Seahawks, and then I think the Cardinals. If you fall 2 of those games, you're likely not going to win your division because now you're at an uphill battle against one of those teams, most likely. To win the Super Bowl, man, we saw what Deebo Samuel looked like against press man. Like I'm not saying Ricky Pearsall can't be elite. I'm not saying that. But if we're gonna ask Ricky Pearsall to take on that big of a role year one, what happens when he starts to do things that Kyle doesn't like on film? Where Kyle gets so upset because he's a rookie and he's not making the right decision on certain routes, or he's certain things that he does, and Kyle gets pissed. He didn't miss the block. That could have been a touchdown. And Kyle gets so upset, and he's like, you know what, Ricky? You're on the bench. Do we expect Jawan Jennings to be that receiver to win a Super Bowl? Like, to be that guy? Like, I know Jennings was almost MVP, but you're asking a much different role. I also think what Brandon Aiyuk brings to the run game to open up a lot for Christian McCaffrey goes unnoticed and untalked about. So I don't think they could win a Super Bowl without Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think, because he is your true receiver. Ricky could be that, but I think Ricky is, and there's a reason why Ricky Pearsall, if you look at all the updates from minicamp, why are we not hearing from Ricky Pearsall outside? It's Ricky Pearsall in the slot. Right? There's a reason for that, Jesse. And I think at that point, whatever team you're playing, whether it's the Chiefs, whatever team, they're gonna press you, they're gonna blitz you. You need someone to get open. Do they have that guy? We don't know yet. It could be Pearsall. We don't know though.
Yeah, and I think you do bring up a good point. One thing I do like about Ricky is that he is a very willing blocker, but that doesn't make him a good blocker. Like, there's a difference. You can want to block and you can try hard at blocking, but you may not be a great blocker. And I think he'll be a decent blocker, but BA's like an elite blocker at the wide receiver position. That's a big deal. And he's just more physically gifted. He's physically stronger and just kind of grimy out there. So Aiyuk is kind of the front runner on a lot of those big plays. When Debo breaks a big one or CMC, it's usually Aiyuk out in front getting a big block on somebody, and he enjoys it. So that is something that I think would be missed from this offense for sure. even if somehow the receiving could be matched, the blocking wouldn't be. And I don't think the receiving would be matched 1-for-1. They'd have to manufacture some touches, maybe go 2 tight end, what have you. That would be an interesting scenario. So,
I mean, they do also have Trent Taylor. So, I mean, not having BA is fine.
yeah, absolutely. Kenny says, Jesse, I brought up your big board reach chart on another show, and they didn't like that. Well, of course they don't. Wow, who likes facts? Foxer53 says, hey, team. Great to catch my favorite duo. Thank you, Foxer. Question for you. Do we think a change at kicker is on the cards? Feel like it's too late into the offseason, but that position makes me nervous. First of all, no, I don't, unless there's some sort of injury. But it makes me nervous too. I mean, we are talking about a player that missed a kick in every single playoff game. That's not great. Now, he did show some good things. What's interesting about Moody, and I noticed this, if it's a long kick, he just doesn't think. He's good. He really is Money Moody from like 50 plus, because I don't think he has time to think. He's just like, I got to put everything into it, and he goes. But if it's a shorter kick, 45 and under, he really kind of gets in his own head. It's a mental thing. And he misses a lot for some reason from those shorter distances. But that's not just a 1-year thing. This is what we talked about during the draft. This was exactly what we talked about, was how inaccurate he was under 45 yards, even in college. So this is a carryover, not saying he can't fix it, but it definitely makes me nervous as well. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I don't think too late in the season. I don't think you do it now. Also, I think roster politics is in play right here, right? The Niners don't want to be wrong that they missed on a 3rd-round pick. Like, I don't know how else you say it, but if Moody was on another team in a Super Bowl situation, for example, let's say he was on Kansas City, right? He wouldn't have been their kicker in the Super Bowl because of the kicks he had missed in the prior weeks. But not even that, going back to the regular season in crucial moments, missing big kicks. If you look at Jake Moody, people don't talk about something, Jesse, but I think it's important to talk about. If he doesn't miss that extra point and he doesn't get blocked, the Niners are up 1 in the late in the game. That changes a lot of things in that game. A lot of things. The way defense is called, offense is called on either side. Now, people are like, oh, it was blocked.
Up four, because they were up 3, right? And then they would have been up 4. Yeah.
It would have needed a touchdown.
He would have needed a touchdown. There would have been no. Yeah.
Yeah, so you needed a touchdown. It's a whole different strategy on how to get down the field.
Yeah.
Defensively, how you're calling the game.
Yeah.
People were like, well, it got blocked, Mark. No, dude, that thing was shanking so far left. If you rewatch the All-22, that thing is going to go wide. Honestly, might go into the stands. Like, I'm not even joking at that point.
And it's a low trajectory anyways. Here's another thing. This is really funny. People are slick. They'll manipulate numbers for you, right? So I've heard people throw this out here where who's the kicker for the Ravens? What's his name again?
Tucker, I think.
Tucker, yeah, Justin Tucker. People are like, well, I mean, if you look at how many missed kicks Moody had compared to Justin Tucker in his rookie year, or Robbie Gould in his rookie year, it's like, okay, that's great, but they also took like 15, 20 more attempts. Like, what are we talking about? So we're looking at total missed kicks, and that's what you're looking at, but you're not looking at the total kicks attempted. It's like, well, he's missed as many. What was it? He's missed as many. It was Tucker, it was Gold, and it was someone else. And then I went and I looked at the overall kicks. All those guys kicked way more. And in the playoffs, he's already missed like 25% of what those guys missed combined in their whole career in their playoffs. So it's funny how people will manipulate a number and throw it out there, and then how many people will actually fall for that without going and doing their own research on something.
Yeah, as career-wise, I think Tucker's at like 90. I want to say Moody was at 80 this year. He made Tucker's rookie year. He kicked 33 attempts and made 30 of them. Moody only attempted 25. Like, that's a big difference. So if you do miss one, it does change your statistics a lot more in terms of everything. Well, honestly, I don't think they have a new kicker. No, I mean they should, but
I mean, whatever. Special teams only help contribute to losing to a Super Bowl. Brother Bob says, 10 minutes in and I'm the first super. Come on, chat. Marco. And then he says, Stats is such a homer. I'm battling with him on Twitter. Hey, I like Stats. But the same face that Marco made, I swear, you go back and watch that, is probably the same face that I made when he was like, yeah, no, I think they could win the Super Bowl. All right, here's something that we haven't talked about, and for good reason. We know who the starting quarterback is for this team, and that feels good. But we also know that quarterbacks, a lot of the time with this team, don't make it through full seasons or 2 straight seasons for that matter. Does quarterback 2 matter this year? And should we be paying attention to it through training camp?
I would say yes.
Okay.
So there's 2 ways I look at it, right? When a backup quarterback. Now, I never expect QB2 to win you games or to be that kind of quarterback. But we do know that QB2 last year, whether it was people want to say it was Darnold, whether they want to say it was Allen, I'm not here for that argument. But what I will look at is the QB2 is important for a starting quarterback. Now, when you look at all the quarterbacks and that always have been QB2, typically what you're looking for is a great quarterback mentally, right? I'm not looking for a quarterback who has a talent, who could go out and win you 16 games in a season. That's not going to happen. You're not getting a quarterback that's going to be elite on the field as a backup quarterback. So I do think it matters, because let's say the Niners do cut Brandon Allen and he's not the smarter of the quarterbacks, or he's not the one who's going to have Brock Purdy right as soon as he gets off the field. And what I mean by off the field, so let's say Jesse's the starting quarterback for Last Second Sports. I'm the backup quarterback, right? Jesse's on the field. He misses a first down read pretty bad. Second down, Jesse misses another read, almost intercepted. I'm on the sideline with the iPad. I'm watching this, seeing what coverages they're in, what he's looking at, what he's missing. Soon as Jesse gets off the field on third down after he throws an interception, I'm explaining to him exactly word for word what I saw. I'm showing him the coverages. This is what you might have saw, because they don't have that much time. They're looking at this like they're going quick, right? So that guy has already processed everything. He's already looking at everything. You need that veteran on the sideline, whether it's your quarterback coach who's able to do it, whether it's a QB2 to do it. I think Brandon Allen he's a more safer bet with the mindset. Obviously, with Joe Burrow being in Kyle Shanahan's offense, I think Kyle can use that mindset to possibly win a game or two. Now, we saw what Joshua Dobbs did in Arizona, in Minnesota, winning games, but it was more so winning games with his athleticism and his arm strength, and not necessarily IQ. He was doing things on the film that's like, dude, they should not have won this many games with Dobbs. My mobility might be worse than Jesse. Let's be honest.
No,
Jesse looks like he goes running every once in a while, bro. Like, let's be honest here. So I think that's where I think it's important. I also think it's extremely important because you do also want someone to in camp when the quarterbacks do have competitions, right? Whether it's throwing into a bucket or doing certain things, who's going to compete with Brock Purdy? Like, I want someone to be able to push him. So does quarterback 2 matter in your eyes in terms of what you see? Who would you prefer, Josh Dobbs or Brandon Allen, to be the Niners quarterback? Or, for example, what if it's Tanner Mordecai and the other 2 aren't even on the roster? They get cut. Brandon Allen right away gets picked up by another team, and Joshua Dobbs goes and signs for a better chance.
Well, I think they're going to keep 3 just based off the last couple of years. You got the emergency quarterback thing. I hope Dobbs is the backup, because I just don't. There's nothing about Allen that impresses me at all. I mean, I watched him in camp last year. It's like, dude, the most basic of basic athleticism, arm strength. I mean, he's just so blah, which is fine, because I do agree. I mean, I think he is very intelligent, and I think Allen's the type of guy that could be a coach soon in this league and help quarterbacks out and actually develop them and do so. He brings something to the table. But if he has to hit the field, I would be pretty worried about that. Dobbs isn't the greatest, but for like a 2-game stretch, it would be great. Here's somebody to keep an eye on. If, hopefully there are no injuries, but if they are in a pinch and this guy's still out there, one Ryan Tannehill might end up on the 49ers in a situation like that. Whether the 49ers or somebody else, there's going to be a team out there that is probably going to have to sign Ryan Tannehill, and he'll have to come in and win some games a la Joe Flacco. But I digress. I hope that the second quarterback is Dobbs, and I think it does matter. I do think it's a big deal, just in the sense that all it takes is 1 or 2 games. And I'm not saying like if the 49ers have to play a backup for 2 games, they're screwed. But if they lose those 2 games because of the backup quarterback, and that's the difference between the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed, or the number 1 seed and the 4 seed, or what have you, that is a big difference. So I think it does matter, because even if it's just 1 game, that 1 game might be the difference. So, and we've seen it in the past. We saw it Trey Lance's rookie year, where they did need to win that game, against the Texans, and Trey Lance was fine. They were able to win the game, and then that allowed Jimmy to come back. They were able to then win in week 18 and then make a nice little playoff run. You never know how important that 1 game is at any point in the season. And that's the cool thing about the NFL, though, too, Marco. Every game matters the same. Week 3 or week 18, it all means something, because they all go towards it. That's another reason why I'm so against adding games to the NFL season. At what point do they stop mattering? There is a point where you just play too many games. Like, you can give up a game or 2. It's not that big of a deal. That's why I think the NBA loses viewership. That's why the MLB loses viewership. NHL, if they were short seasons and every game meant something important, those leagues would be going crazy. And that's the way it is with the NFL. But you keep adding games, eventually they're not all going to mean something. So I'm kind of against 18 games for that reason alone. But yeah, I think it matters. I don't think it's like something that should be a talking point every show, but it definitely does matter.
So a question that I'm going to ask you, because I know you think it does matter, and you mentioned a quarterback who possibly would be immediately QB2 on the Niners right now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be more inclined for the Niners to sign Ryan Tannehill, whether that meant eating up some of the cap space to have on the roster as a quarterback too, just because we never know what's going to happen to a guy like Brock Purdy? And now we've had the scares and everything. We understand how the Niners offensive line isn't great, so you might go through quarterbacks with this team, right? Would you rather that, or would you rather just extend Brandon Aiyuk and roll with these 2 guys? That if that was the option, if that was the case, right? If the Niners hey, we have enough money is just to sign Ryan Tannehill to be our quarterback 2, or to extend Brandon Aiyuk, which one would you do?
I would have to extend Brandon Aiyuk. I think, listen, I mean, either way, Brandon Ayuk's going to have to play games for this team. But if I can sign him now and ensure that he's in camp and fully ready, I'm just going to take my chances. I'm going to take my chances that Brock Purdy can do what he did last year and protect himself for the most part, that the offensive line has improved just enough, and that hopefully he can make it through the season unscathed. So I'll take my chances on that one. But I wouldn't mind having a Ryan Tannehill on this team all the way through, because if you need him for a game, I feel a lot better about Ryan Tannehill than I do a Dobbs or an Allen. So yeah, I wouldn't mind a Ryan Tannehill being here.
When it's all said and done, if the Niners had to start someone throughout the season, a game or 2, who are you? You said you're rolling with Josh Dobbs?
I'd prefer Dobbs, yeah. I would.
And you think they both make the roster this year, right?
I do. Yeah, I do. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know if they both make it. I think Mordecai might make it, but I think definitely 3 quarterbacks too. Yeah, because you have the emergency quarterback situation now.
I don't like it. Honestly, I truly don't like 3 quarterbacks making the roster. And the reason is because right when you have 3 quarterbacks make the roster, I get you have your franchise quarterback. Obviously, it's no brainer. But then having the 3rd quarterback, you're honestly preparing for the worst, right? When essentially, even if an NFL team gets to their 2nd quarterback, it truly doesn't matter, because you're not winning a Super Bowl with that quarterback. Realistically, you're not. Their teams don't have a starting quarterback sitting behind their starter yearly. So if you get to that 2nd quarterback, you're in SOL anyway. So looking at it, I honestly don't want them to keep 3 quarterbacks. I'd rather have them keep an extra receiver, a corner, someone who actually may be able to contribute. Looking at it, I just don't get the idea of a guy who's an emergency dude who's never active, but he's just on your roster just in case. Why don't you put someone on your practice squad for the entire season, and just in case you need him, you could call him up?
Yeah, I feel like you might be able to sneak an Allen and or a Mordecai onto your practice squad. So yeah, that actually might be the way to go. I agree because that's one thing I am looking at. I've been looking at the wide receiver position and the corner position, oddly enough, and look like, man, somebody good's not going to make this roster, and it's somebody young. That's the harder part. It's not like you're just cutting a veteran. It's like, okay, well, they're maxed out. It's like you're going to have to forego somebody's development and possibility of maybe being a contributor to this team for many years to come. All for what? I mean, maybe that guy's Womack. Maybe that guy is Luter. Maybe that guy is who's Bell. Somebody like that. You Danny Gray. Like you're gonna have to get rid of somebody that is younger that might be able to do something. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that by any means. And if you can sneak one of those guys on the practice squad, then maybe that too. So Dave says driving. It's hard to super chat. Help me out, BB. And then Brother Bob says we just had an earthquake. Need some wine. Damn, stay safe, dude. 4.0. That's not very big, but earthquakes scare the hell out of me. I don't know. Earthquakes and tornadoes.
Yeah, tornadoes
Earthquakes
are
and
scary.
tornadoes. Those are the ones.
Not the alligators, right? Those don't scare you in Florida. They just become your pet.
Yeah. So
Jesse,
I see him every day. I on my walk every day, I walk right by one. Pretty close almost every day. Whether, there's some big ones, there's some small ones, but there's a lot of ponds in the neighborhood and there's a lot of alligators. So I see them every day. So yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it makes sense. You learned how to tame them already.
Yeah.
It touches on the nose and it does like a trick for him and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
I feed it raw chicken and stuff. It's fine. Hey, let's talk about another backup position. Kyle Shanahan brought up during his press conference that they need to protect CMC a little bit from himself this year, which is great in theory. I think he knew that last year and he still didn't do it. We'll see if he actually does it this year. But let's say he does decide to do that. First of all, do you think Mason should be the number 2 running back ahead of Mitchell? And second of all, do you think Mason can be a contributor on this team this season? Or are we all just going to clamor for him forever?
And no, the answer is yes to both and yes to all of them, right? So when you look at Jordan Mason, man, like Jordan Mason proved himself his rookie year in 2022. I thought he showed enough to be that kind of guy. I want to say he had like 250 yards, averaged like 6 yards a carry. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Elijah Mitchell also proved himself his rookie year in 21. He averaged 4.7 yards per attempt as the starter. Had 963 yards, but since then he's been hit with injuries, and those injuries have obviously affected him. They've been knee injuries. They've been injuries that are hard to recover from, even though they're not fully torn. He wasn't able to truly rehab himself, and it showed coming back. He doesn't look explosive anymore. The yards per attempt went down last year to 3.7. He just doesn't look the same. Now, Jordan Mason last year, when he was getting the ball, he was getting 5 yards a carry. He looks like he's developed as a receiver out of the backfield. I think he truly should be your running back 2. He should get carries, and if he doesn't, there's something wrong with the 49ers coaching staff. There's no reason Christian McCaffrey is getting the ball so much when you need him to be healthy late in the season, but most importantly, Christian McCaffrey looked slowed down in the playoffs. He didn't look like Christian McCaffrey like he did in the regular season. I want to say he had 272 rush attempts last season. That's his highest since 2019. He had 287. People forget Christian McCaffrey broke down for a few years because of the way Carolina used him. So I think you got to let Jordan Mason be that dude. He showed enough. The only issue, Jesse, pass protection. We've seen what Jordan Mason looks like in pass protection. And
that's it. Yep.
That's what's going to keep him off the field. And if Elijah Mitchell could pass protect, we're going to see Elijah Mitchell. But why don't we see, why can't we see 3 running backs in this offense? Truthfully. Why can't you line up Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason as your juice roll every once in a while? Are they not better receivers? Are they not more explosive to give you a different dynamic? I think they could both do it. Now, you're not expecting them to be that full lead blocker every single time. But when I'm looking at everything, I think Elijah Mitchell's speed as a third back would be extremely explosive every once in a while. We've seen teams do it across the NFL. I don't know why the Niners are truly so focused on one player in Christian McCaffrey. Let's keep him healthy for the Super Bowl, so when he is in the Super Bowl, he's not banged up. I don't know. Do you remember the picture his wife posted, or his fiance, soon to be wife, posted
Of all the bruising.
of all the bruising? Like, that was late in the season. We shouldn't be seeing that from him as often as it was posted.
Yeah, and Jed says, hey, Jordan Mason comes in when other team is tired and he's fresh. And if he's good enough, why hasn't he been playing? Are we suggesting Kyle is self-sabotaging? I don't think we're suggesting that. I think that is one thing, though, Judd, that was brought up by Marco. The question on Mason was posed a lot last year. And it was posed to me multiple times. And every single time I was pretty consistent in what I said, which was, for me, it's not his talent. There's clearly something else. And I'm speculating, but I'm just going off of a short stint in training camp. I can tell you without a doubt, there was 3 passes that I remember, 2 of them with Trey Lance on the field, 1 of them with Brock Purdy on the field, where he ran out of the backfield, the quarterback threw it one direction, and he was running another. Now, you can't tell me that that's on the quarterback, especially all 3 times. So that tells me that Mason didn't know what he was supposed to do on third downs and route running. And then if he's not a great blocker, that becomes an issue as well. I think it was also Mason, if I'm not mistaken. Remember the funny play when Brock Purdy was in against the Chiefs his rookie year, and he turned one way and then Mason went the other way? It's like, well, whose fault was that? Well, after watching Brock Purdy play for a while, I think we probably know it was Jordan Mason's fault, right? And Mason's done that more than once. He did it another time last year. So he has to be better. And we know that Kyle Shanahan is very particular about his playbook, making sure things are ran a certain way. So I think that is what was keeping him off the field. He has to improve in that area. But if he doesn't, they also do need to find a way to get him touches, because he's a bruiser and he can help Christian McCaffrey a ton. Him playing early downs in, let's say, the second quarter, third quarter, what have you, makes Christian McCaffrey's job a lot easier later in that game. Let him be the battering ram 5, 6, 7 times a game to help wear down the defense so that you can be fresh late in the game and go close things out. That's the way that I see it. You don't necessarily need to get him in on third down, but he does need to be better on third down and knowing his assignments if he is actually going to see the field consistently. And that is on him. And it seems like for some reason, nobody wanted to talk about that last year. And I tried to many times, but nobody wanted to hear it. So I don't know.
And it's very visible, right? Like, you could see it with Jordan Mason. Like, he goes the wrong way on a lot of times and doesn't pick up certain blitzers and stuff like that. So you can't have someone like that who's going to get your quarterback killed. But on running downs, why not? Like, if he's in and they're running the ball, guess what? Offensive linemen love that stuff, man. There's a lot of times when I talk to an offensive lineman, whether in college or NFL, and I ask them, what's your favorite part of playing? And their favorite is, my favorite thing is knowing we're running the ball. The defense knows we're running the ball, and I get to move someone at their own will and laugh at them. Like, that's probably the best part for an offensive lineman. But looking at Jordan Mason, does he make it over a guy like Elijah Mitchell, Isaac Guerendo? Like, is he on the fringe? Is he getting a lot of reps right now because Kyle wants to see what he looks like and if he knows the playbook? And then come training camp, he gets pushed behind guys like Isaac Guerendo, Cody Schrader. Is this what we're seeing right now? Like, hey, you know what? Let's give him heck of reps. Let's see if he goes the wrong way one time. That one time is his last time. Do you think that could be possible?
I hope not, because I think he's a good player, man. If Guerendo beats him out, let's say Guerendo does make this team and Mason doesn't, then maybe we were just wrong about Mason this whole time. Like that's a
Oh,
possibility.
you think that's
But
a possibility?
also but also I think he'll land somewhere. There are teams that can use running backs, right? Like, could you imagine? Throw out a scenario to you.
He'd be a Raven.
That's a good point. What about if he ends up on the Cowboys? Because they could use one, right? Like they brought back Zeke, and Zeke is basically going to be their third down back because he is a good pass protector. He does know what he's doing. Mason could be their one and two down back. Now I know that they like their guy who played mainly special teams last year, but they could use a Mason. And Mason might cause some problems. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to see it. I wouldn't want to risk it.
And if it wasn't a team like the Dallas Cowboys, I could see him going especially to a team in the division, right? The Rams, Seattle, they all like to run the ball. They have running backs that are usually injured. A team like that. So like I don't think we're wrong on Mason, man. I think it's more so the coaching staff. Because you don't get Jordan Mason, man, he's had touched the ball 40 times last year. You don't average 5.2 yards a carry by mistake. Like you don't. Like I get if he had like 10 carries and it's like, okay, 10 carries, he
He's
averaged
never
5 yards
fumbled
a
in a
carry.
game either, has he?
I think he
I don't
might
think
have,
he's.
man.
Did he? Oh, okay. I don't know that he
Actually,
has
he
any
doesn't.
lost
No, he
fumbles.
doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it
So
right.
he
He doesn't.
protects the ball. He runs hard. We know that he can close games out. He probably had an issue. Maybe he's rectified it, but the third down thing. But at the very least, we know he can be a productive runner in this league. Isn't that like the primary thing that you want a running back to do is be a runner of the football? That's why they're called running backs, right? I mean, I could be mistaken, but
No, absolutely no. The thing is, though, is have you heard anything good from Isaac Garendo? I have not heard anything good from
no.
Isaac Garendo. I didn't like Isaac Garendo coming out. I thought he was overrated. I thought he was just that 40 time was not real. His testing numbers did not show up on tape. Someone I spoke to, and they don't. I'm glad they don't do content because man, if they did content, dude, 49er fans would hate this dude. Like they would hate his guts. Dude said Isaac Garendo might be worse than the last two third round running backs the Niners have taken. And to me, I'm like, what? There's no way he's worse than Trey Sermon or Ty Davis Price. There's no way. There's no way. He goes, dude. Like he goes, there's so many times he's in the backfield and he's looking for where he's supposed to go and he's just like doesn't know what he's doing. That to me scares me. Like when you have a guy like that who has seen all of those guys and he said he might be worse. I was like, what about athlete wise? I was like, because Trey Sermon and Ty Davis Price weren't the athlete. He goes, dude, he's fast. Like when he open field, you see Garendo's fast, but he needs to get on a straight line. He goes, and he can't find the straight line or the hole to get on a straight line. He goes, that's his biggest issue. He goes, people thought TDP had bad vision. He goes, wait until they watch Garendo. He goes, if he doesn't fix this issue, people are going to be insanely upset about it, man. And it's weird because I didn't even ask him about Garendo. I was asking about Cody Schrader because I think Cody Schrader is a better running back.
You know, it's interesting because Schrader is probably the better running back. He's one of the most porous testing athletes ever. And then Garendo is the exact opposite. He's the athletic freak, but isn't good on the field. This is what makes things really interesting. It's like if you could just mold those two together, you'd have a hell of a player, man. He just had. That's my issue with Garendo is that he was never a starter in either place. He left a school, went to another school, and still didn't start. So I don't know. We'll see what Garendo is. James says never trust a dude that wears one glove. There's something off with that player's mentality. I don't think Mason makes the 53. Maybe the practice squad. Mitchell is running back 2. That's a bold prediction. I think it's a bold prediction.
He wears one glove. I think it's for his niece.
Oh,
I think that's what I had.
Dude, don't. Yeah. All right. You know what? I still like the comment.
I think that's what it is. I have to defend Jordan Mason here. I think it's because of his niece who passed away. I could be wrong.
Oh,
thought I had read something like that. So
you might be right.
I just have to be that person.
Now we feel bad. I didn't even make the comment, but I read it.
I knew you didn't, but I just wanted
nobody knew that. Nobody knew that.
No, no one did.
That sucks.
You're like, dude,
All
thanks
right.
for killing the show,
Yeah,
Marco.
yeah. All right. Listen, we're
Fun.
gonna move on to the next topic here. If that's what it is, that's actually really awesome. So shout out to Mason. I think Mason's a good player, though. Ultimately, is really what matters, and I hope that he sees the field. Okay, there's a lot of position battles on this team. We're talking about the backup wide receiver positions. We're talking about offensive line spots. Really, more so than anything, we're talking secondary and not just backup spots. We're talking starting secondary roles, either outside corner or nickel corner, depending on what makes the most sense with Diomedor Lenore, and safety. So the question becomes, I'll ask it two different ways. First of all, who do you think wins out those spots? Do you think it's the young guys that are rookies, so like a Malik Mustafa or Renato Green, or do you think it's a vet? And then I got a follow-up question for you.
Each position is different, right?
Okay.
Because
you can
at linebacker,
them, give them both. Yeah.
So at linebacker, you got Devondre Campbell, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he should win it out. I don't think he's that good of a linebacker. I think you have a guy like D. Winters who has been playing well. Jalen Graham, who I thought was really good last year in training camp. So I think those rookies should beat him out if they're given the chance. Now, again, the key word is, are they given a chance? Are the young dudes finally given a chance? The opportunity isn't there, then there's no way that they're going to win a job, right? At corner, I think Renato Green wins it. I think Renato Green starts in that nickel role. I don't think Mustafa starts unless Hufanga's hurt to start the season. But then going to the offensive side of the ball, Dominic Puny. That's the biggest one where I'm like, does he start? Does Kyle trust him? Can he start? And I think that's the bigger one. And I want to lean towards the young player because the vet, I'm not saying Feliciano isn't good, but has never been like an elite player or like a top guard in the NFL. So I want Puny to be able to beat him out, because if he can't beat out a journeyman to this point, he's a journeyman. I think Feliciano is, at least this point in his career.
I'd rather have him start at center, honestly. Feliciano. Yeah.
So hopefully Puny could win it out. But man, at what point do the Niners go younger in some positions to let these young guys play? A lot of times, if they're not given a chance, they're just given to the vet right away. I didn't like when Nick Sorensen was asked about the second linebacker spot, right? His first answer and the way he responded to an answer was, well, I mean, yeah, we have Devondre Campbell right next to Fred Warner, so we shouldn't have a big drop off. And I was like, wait,
so you're guaranteeing him a spot?
Yeah, that was like, wait, so he signs and he's guaranteed a spot? One, he wasn't good in Green Bay, and I know he wasn't good because Kyle Shanahan liked to circle him and he liked to attack him when they would play. So that says a lot. So I'm confused. Do we just hand out roster spots? Does Kyle just give people starting jobs now? I thought the Niners culture was the best man wins, or is it the best man Kyle likes wins, or his friends win? How does this work right now? I'm confused. Explain to me, Jesse.
Yeah, well, I think competition will breed in training camp, hopefully. But there is a thing that Kyle does where he likes the veteran player. He just trusts him for whatever reason. I don't know why. I do prefer, however, I know. I do prefer, especially in the secondary, starting younger guys, though. That's just me personally. I think out of all the positions in sports, corner especially is a young man's position. It just is. Now, you can have some guys that are a little bit older that do very well, but for the most part, the elite of the elite are usually younger, and that's because you need to be extremely athletic there. And I would love to see, and I the way he's competed, or it sounds like he's competed, Renato Green's that deal, man. He is that deal. So I'm excited to watch him in training camp. I would prefer that they do a little bit of a youth movement on the fly here. I think the team can withstand it. And then I think by the end of the year, because to me, this is the goal. The goal is to be the best you can be when you hit the playoffs, not the best you can be week one. I know it's a week-to-week league, but I think this team can withstand a couple rookie mistakes here and there and still be able to be competitive and win most of their games. But I think because of the upside of some of these younger players, they would be better off for going through some of those growing pains early. When they hit the playoffs, they'd be at a much different level and a higher ceiling than what they would be at if they just go with the old trusty veterans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's the point, right? Like, I think someone said that they thought I was being like trying not calling him the right name, puny. Like this is his last name. Not trying to be a jerk about it. But Ronaldo Green, right? I think you made the great point. I want him to start. He has the tenacity. He showed on tape college. He has the dog. He has like a certain swagger to him that the secondary. There's two players in the secondary that have that swagger, in my opinion. Demo, and I think Hufanga. And if you add a third guy into that mix with that kind of swag, I'm going to be excited about it because he has a kind of like energy it's electric. And if he is from the start of the season struggling, let him go through those struggles. Like, I don't get when you have a rookie who struggles and right away you take him out and like, all right, we're going to bench him. Figure it out. You're only going to figure it out by going through reps. Like, so I do hope he is by the time he is in the playoffs, he's a starting caliber player, or he's like playing like a year two player. Because obviously 16 games, 17 games is a long season to become developed really fast. Do you think some of the other guys, do you think D Winters has a chance?
I mean, it sounds like he's getting talked up an awful lot. Listen, I have a Jalen Graham agenda, and I'm just going to be real honest with you. Even if he looks like garbage, he's going to be the all-star of camp. So when I'm reporting back from camp, just so you know, now he might actually be the best player there. And if he is, that's awesome. But he may be terrible. And you're not going to know because I'm going to talk him up every single day as if he's the best player because I have an agenda to carry out. No, I'll be very honest about who does what. But I like Winters, and he might be really good. But man, I still feel like there's something there with Jalen Graham, and we'll see. We'll see in camp. But I think they would be better off starting one of these younger linebackers than they would starting Campbell, in my opinion, as long as they can hold their own.
And I think the issue is for Winters and everything like that. And Jalen Graham is one. Jalen Graham is more of a Mike linebacker. I think Winters is more of that will linebacker. Like he could go. You want him to be roaming. I think if Jalen Graham was replacing Fred, he'd be getting talked up right now. Like he'd be like, oh, like this dude's playing really good football. He's shooting gaps like a 10-year, like a veteran, right? Like I want to say 10-year pro, 13-year pro, but those dudes don't last that long. So when you look at Jalen Graham, he's more of a Mike. So I agree he's still a good player. There's something there. But unfortunately, he's not that will linebacker that the Niners need.
He's redundant for Fred Warner. He's not redundant for Dre Greenlaw. I understand. I fully understand that. I do. I don't know. I was really impressed with him last year, and we'll see. I am with some of the guys in the chat, though. I think it's Pooney, not Puny. But I could be wrong. I reserve the right to be wrong.
It's just Puny, not Pooney?
No, it's Pooney, not Puny. You're saying Puny. I think it's Pooney.
Oh, okay.
Pooney.
Okay. Oh, his nickname. Should I just start calling him by his nickname? I think his nickname's like Tiny or something like that, isn't it?
Okay, let's. So
I could be. I swear, I'm not even trying to be like
even better.
I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I thought I saw someone joke about his nickname. They're like, how can someone have a nickname Tiny when he's like 6'5", 340?
Well, if his name is Pooney, you pronounce it Puny. I mean, a synonym of that would be tiny-ish, right? So maybe that's how they get it. I don't know, but that's pretty funny. If he's tiny, then that's what we're gonna call him.
I could have. I'm gonna find it, bro. I have to find it.
Yeah, you might be right on that one. You might, and I'm gonna have to look up the pronunciation because I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I could be wrong too. That being said, we did have another topic, but we went 55 minutes. You got to get to your.
We could hit that last topic.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure. I don't want to steal your time. I don't want that hair to fall out and then your wife's mad at me. All right. Let's talk about the last topic then. Give me a player, and it may be some of the players that we already listed, right? It might be. It might be a player that we already listed, but Give me a player that is new to this team or new to a starting role on this team. So we're talking about younger players, maybe an outside player that came on from another team that you think is going to have an impact on this year's hopeful Super Bowl run.
Man, this is a fun topic, and because there's a lot of players who should have an immediate impact who are new to the roster. Guys who maybe have been drafted, guys who may have just recently signed to the roster. I'm not going to go Leonard Floyd. Obviously, that's an easy answer. Like I
think so.
That's the easy way out. But I'm going to go Renardo Green.
Okay.
I think Renardo Green, by midseason, Jesse and I will be having a conversation about Renardo Green and the aspect of the 49ers should not extend Charvarius Ward or Phenomenal Lenore because of how great Renardo Green has played or the flashes that he has shown. I think he's going to be a guy that steps in year one, locks up with in the slot, goes outside in certain situations when needed. I want to say he's 6 foot, 5'11", and like 7'8" or something like that. So pretty much 6 foot. I think he could do that. Another guy that I'm actually really excited about, who I think is capable, and I think he's going to be more of an impact in the receiving game than someone a lot of 49er fans want to have an impact. I think Jacob Cowing will have a more of an impact in the receiving game than Ricky Pearsall, whether that's Kyle's guy that he asks to clear out, whether Kyle uses them in quick game and stuff like that. I think Cowing has a better or more chance to be an impact guy. The third guy that I'm going to give you guys, Darrell Luter, special teams and at corner. If someone goes down, he will step in. It won't be one of the new corners they signed. It'll be Darrell Luter who steps in, and I think Darrell Luter will be able to hold his own.
Ooh, okay. All right. That's some good names. I saw this one in the chat, and this is who I'm going with. Malik Collins. I think now you can make an argument who should start next to Hargrave, right? Because Malik Collins is not the run stopper. So, I could see a scenario where maybe you don't go that route. But man, I think he can be a menace on third downs at the very least. And if he can play big in the middle and be a run stuffer, I think he can be a 3-down guy. But I think that he can fill in very admirably for Eric Armstead. Now, I think Eric Armstead is still a better player at this stage in his career, although he can't stay healthy. But I don't understand, honestly. I really, truly don't understand why the Texans basically gave him away for free. I think he can be a big-time player, especially with good linemen around him. And you look at what the Texans have. I mean, they brought in some impact players, pass rusher players. Why not keep Collins for that scenario? Even if he's the third down specialist rushing up the middle, I think it was a mistake on their part. He's not a lot of money. There's not a lot of risk with him. And I think he's going to be a pretty damn good player this year. So I'm going to go with Collins. I think he's the one for me.
Do you think Collins was a reason the Texans had the 6th best run defense, or was he a product of DeMeco Ryans doing certain things? Because when you look at before Malik Collins, when I look at him prior to DeMeco, I watched a lot of film on him. He's not that good of a run defender. Now last year he looked really good, so maybe where like DeMeco Ryans was like, hey, like I got the best I can get out of this guy. Let's just ship him off and let's go young, right? Because I want to say Malik Collins is a little bit older than what the avenue they're trying to go. I think he's 29, maybe 30. They're trying to go young. So is this something where DeMeco saw something before the Niners sent him our way? We don't have a good run defense. Does it get worse or does it get better?
I don't know that he was a big contributor in the run defense, and that's my only concern, and that's why Elliott's here, in my opinion. And so that's where the question comes in: does Elliott start because he is the better run defender, and then Collins is just your third down guy? What does that rotation look like? I just think that Collins is absolutely a contributor in as far as pass defense goes. I really do. I think he's a really good pass rusher, an underrated pass rusher. And what I'm looking at is you get on that third down and you've got Floyd, you've got Bosa, you've got Hargrave, and then you got Collins. I feel like that's a 4 that can just wreak havoc. So I don't know how much of an impact he'll make in the run game, but I think he's going to make a massive, massive impact when it comes to third downs. So I'm going to bank on that and hope that he improves in the run defense. I don't think he's a good run defender. I don't. And I think that can be an issue when he and Hargrave are on the field together. And that's what gives me a little bit pause and says, all right, maybe Elliott might be the better 1 down guy, 2 down guy, but third downs, I think Collins is going to be fun to watch. I do.
I do see Hugo's comment where he said, does that matter? He's in our scheme now, but he's a Texans are a product from us. We should be good. Texans are, I would say the Texans are a product of us to a certain extent, right? Because D'Amico does a lot of things differently that he wanted to do with the Niners that he does in Texas and Houston. And I think the Niners don't have as good of a defensive coordinator as D'Amico, so he elevates his defense. So I'm definitely interested to see how he does, how many sacks he gets and stuff like that. I think that's where he's going to win. Before we go and everything like that, TJ, don't know how to say his last name.
Houshmandzadeh?
Yeah, so he was on 95.7 a game while we were live.
Okay.
He said, and I know we talked about Brandon Aiyuk, so I just want to hear what your comments are regarding these quotes from him. He said, at one point, Brandon Aiyuk thought he may sign. That optimistic outlook has turned into a pessimistic outlook. And then he stated approximately a month and a half ago is when he thought BA thought he was close to signing with the 49ers. And then he stated, if the 49ers want to get BA signed, give him the Amon-Ra deal. I guaranteed he'd be in there tomorrow. They don't want to do that deal. If they offered him Amon-Ra's deal, he would be at camp. What are your thoughts on TJ speaking to 95.7 The Game? The fact that BA thought he was going to sign a month ago is crazy to me. I'm just very curious on what you have to say about that, Jesse.
Well, we know that Houshmandzadeh works with BA. So this is legit stuff here. Like it's funny because we feel like we have the 49ers side of the house figured out, especially with Maiocco talking. Now we have the BA side of the house. This is really interesting.
To start the show, like I truly thought okay, well, I felt like this is gamesmanship, right? Maiocco put out that article or said that in that interview,
and now Houshmandzadeh comes out and talks for BA. Wow. Okay. Actually, the biggest surprise to me is that he would sign the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, because my argument the other day was I'm looking at the guaranteed money from Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jalen Waddle. The figures all look good, right? As far as total guarantees, average annual value. But when you dig a little bit deeper and you look at that signing bonus, it's less than what Deebo Samuel got, and it's far less than what Calvin Ridley got. Okay. So my argument was, hey, he wants closer to the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, but he probably wants a little bit more guaranteed money. If TJ Houshmandzadeh is right, and I tend to believe him on this one, if they're not even willing to offer him the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal,
wild.
I don't know that a deal gets done, man. I don't, because that's the going rate at this point. You're not even getting that far locked into guaranteed money. Then the question becomes, okay, what is it about the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal? Is it simply they want to do a 3-year deal and BA wants 4? Is that the hang up? Is it the average annual value? Is it the total guarantees? Hell, is it the signing bonus? That low of a signing bonus? You're not even willing to give that to him? Man, I don't look at anything at that deal and say, hey, I wouldn't do that for BA. I would definitely do that deal for BA. I think that would be a steal because of the guaranteed money and the outs that you have in that contract. The fact that they're not willing to go there, that makes me a little bit nervous that this thing's not going to get done. It really does.
So just to take a look at Deebo Samuel versus Amon-Ra. So Deebo was 3 years, 71.5. Signing bonus was at 24. His guaranteed at signing was at 41. And his total or practical guarantees is at 58 million.
Yep.
Amon-Ra's is 4 years, 120, 16.5 signing bonus. guaranteed at signing was only 34.6, and his total was 77. Is it the total that they're worried about? Because Debo got more guaranteed at signing than Amon-Ra, which is interesting. Debo also got more of a signing bonus. So it's like, do you value Debo that much more than Brandon Aiyuk? Like, that's where I'm like, the market goes up. BA's a better receiver, true receiver. Like, that's very concerning what TJ's saying, man. Very, very concerning. And definitely sounds like two things could be true, right? Matt Maiocco was a mouthpiece for the 49ers in the sense of he's telling the fans, you know what, get prepared. This may happen. TJ's coming out and kind of agreeing with him. Like, hey, they don't even want to give my guy the bare minimum of the new contracts. He may not sign. A lot of information today.
The plot thickens. Damn, man. That's crazy. That one kind of blows my mind that they're not willing to go to that contract, it sounds like. I don't know. It's a lot to ponder. I'm going to have to listen to it. Now I'm intrigued. Dave says, just got home in my new caddy. Driving a new caddy. I love it, Dave. And he says, you kept the drive alive. I was snoozing. Well, don't fall asleep. Or at least hopefully your new caddy can drive itself. Brother Bob says, Kenny 49ers said, did y'all talk about free agents? No, we didn't talk about free agents. We have in the past, maybe another show. Now I do know that Marco has to get out of here. That was a great way to end the show. Thank you for dropping that nugget at the end of the show. Glad to hear it. Have fun at your graduation. Thank you for doing these shows with me, Marco. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for showing love the way that you do. Hope you have a blessed weekend, unless there's breaking news. I'm usually off for the weekends. And until next time, peace.